December 5th, 1943. Dawn. Kazvin Rail Depot. Persian Corridor. Frost clings to every metal surface. The mountain stands silent and pale blue in the cold, and through the razor-sharp morning air comes a sound that no one in the Red Army Logistics Battalion has ever heard before. A low, steady growl. Not tanks, not artillery. Something smoother. Major Viktor Sokolov steps out of the dispatch hut, his breath drifting like smoke in the freezing light. He tightens his coat and squints down the long valley road. Then he sees them. At first, 2 headlights. Then 10. Then hundreds. A column so long it seems to pour out of the horizon itself. Studebaker US-6 trucks. Green. Massive. Identical. All rumbling in perfect rhythm, like a single metal organism breathing through the mountains. Sokolov isn't a man easily surprised. He has survived the purges, the retreats of 1941, the frozen graveyards outside Moscow. But now he stands frozen again. Not from cold, but from disbelief. Because no Soviet factory had ever produced something like this. Not at this scale. Not at this speed. The lead American driver climbs down, smiling, frost on his eyebrows. He shouts over the engines. Convoy 417, 900 trucks delivered. More behind us. More behind us. Sokolov's interpreter repeats the words, but the officers don't need translation. They understand perfectly. This isn't a delivery. It's a statement. Trucks grind to a halt in perfect alignment, 6 columns wide, stretching further than the eye can track. Soviet officers walk among them, touching fenders, knocking on steel frames, peering under hoods like men inspecting a creature from another world. Captain Ilya Morozov, thin, exhausted, grease permanently stained into his hands, runs his fingers across the Studebaker logo. 6-wheel drive, he mutters. All of them? Every single one? The American driver shrugs casually. Built by the tens of thousands. Tens of thousands? In the USSR, even elite frontline units fight over the last running ZIS truck. Many divisions still rely on horses and manpower to haul shells through mud. And here stand machines with sealed wiring, strong suspensions, heaters, and engines that purr even in winter. Engines that don't choke in cold. Engines that don't stall in mud. Engines designed for war, not survival. A staff officer whispers, Zhukov must see this. Another replies, Zhukov already knows. That's why he asked for more. Hours later, General Semyon Krutikov arrives in a jeep, coat flapping like a cape in the icy wind. Everyone snaps to attention. He steps forward, boots crunching in the snow, and his breath leaves him when he sees the endless line of machinery. This, he murmurs, is not assistance. This is industry at war. A lieutenant beside him replies softly, and ours cannot do this. Krutikov says nothing. He's thinking of Stalingrad, Kursk, Orel, the victories they barely achieved with supply lines held together by desperation and faith. He's thinking of how many offensives died because ammunition arrived too late or never arrived at all. But these trucks can carry enough shells, food, rockets, and fuel to feed entire armies on the move. For the first time, the Soviet Union has legs. The convoy commander hands Krutikov a clipboard. Sir, this is one batch. The Persian corridor will push through several 100,000 vehicles. More are coming by sea to Basra and Bandar Shah. More by rail. More every week. Zhukov lifts an eyebrow. Hundreds of thousands? 400,000 by end of program, the American replies confidently, if not more. The clipboard nearly slips from Zhukov's hands. 400,000. That number doesn't just change logistics. It changes strategy. It changes possibility. It means armies can move in winter. It means artillery can fire without waiting for horses. It means tanks can be fed with fuel whenever needed. It means offensives don't stop when mud arrives, they accelerate. And for the first time since the Germans crossed the border in 1941, the Soviet officers feel something unfamiliar rising in their chests. Momentum. By late afternoon, the valley has transformed into a living factory. Soviet mechanics swarm the trucks, studying every detail. Lighting systems, gearboxes, axle housings. Morozov crawls under one chassis and bursts out laughing like a man who has seen a miracle. Look at this. The wiring is protected. Protected. Who protects wiring? Another mechanic calls from the back. These engines, they start on the first crank, even cold. A third shouts from the cab. There are heaters. Heaters. The officers begin to understand why the frontline divisions had been begging Moscow for more Studebakers, and why Marshal Zhukov himself had sent an urgent directive. Acquire all that can be acquired, for without these vehicles, our operations will stand still. By late afternoon, the valley has transformed into a living factory. Soviet mechanics swarm the trucks, studying every detail. Lighting systems, gearboxes, axle housings. Morozov crawls under one chassis and bursts out laughing like a man who has seen a miracle. Look at this! The wiring is protected. Protected. Who protects wiring? Another mechanic calls from the back. These engines, they start on the first crank, even cold. A third shouts from the cab. There are heaters! Heaters! By twilight bleeding into night, the convoy prepares to move east toward the Caucasus railheads. Thousands of headlights flicker on, cutting through the darkness like glowing veins of light stretching across the earth. Sokolov stands on a hill watching the lines begin to roll out again. He imagines the future. Studebakers hauling Katyusha rockets across Ukraine. Studebakers dragging howitzers over the Carpathians. Studebakers feeding the Red Army during Operation Bagration. Studebakers delivering the final blow into East Prussia and Berlin. This is the hinge of history. Americans call it logistics. Soviets will call it salvation. Behind him, Zhukov whispers to his aide, "Now I understand why Zhukov said the West fights with factories, not soldiers." A pause. And if this is what they are giving us, what must they be keeping for themselves? The aide says nothing. Some questions don't need answers. Not yet. But soon, the front line will feel the truth rumbling beneath their boots. December 1943, south of Kiev. A moonless night hangs above the Ukrainian plains, the sky thick with smoke drifting from burning villages. The wind is sharp, metallic, carrying the distant thud of artillery, like a heartbeat, reminding every man on this frozen front that dawn will bring another fight. Colonel Viktor Denisov stands beside a battered 76mm field gun, his breath fogging the air. Behind him, Soviet infantry shuffle in exhausted silence. Their boots are worn thin, their coats are patched. Their horses, the few that remain, stand trembling, ribs visible beneath their matted fur. For weeks, the Red Army has been advancing, but barely.
Fuel is low. Ammunition is late. Shells arrive 2 days after they're needed. And every offensive threatens to choke to a halt simply because the army cannot move fast enough. Then, at 04:17, Denisov hears it. At first, it sounds like thunder, a rolling, rhythmic pulse carried across the steppe. He squints into the darkness. No, not thunder. Engines. Multiple engines. Dozens. A rumble rising like an iron tide. "Comrade Colonel," a lieutenant whispers, "something is coming from the south road." Another soldier climbs a small ridge and freezes. "Товарищ полковник, это невозможно." "Comrade Colonel, this is impossible."
Headlights pierce the black horizon. Not one or two beams, but hundreds. A line of lights stretching farther than the eye can see, snaking across the landscape like a river of fire. Denisov's breath stops. A convoy. A convoy unlike anything he has ever witnessed. The first vehicle roars past. A Studebaker US-6. Six-wheel drive. Smooth. Powerful. Engine humming like a brand new machine fresh off an American production line. Its tires crush the snow with steady confidence, throwing white powder into the air. Behind it, another Studebaker. Then another. And another. What is this?" a young corporal stammers. Denisov whispers the only words that make sense. Lend-Lease. The moon breaks through the clouds for a moment, just long enough to reveal the impossible sight. A convoy stretching miles. Fuel, ammunition, food, medical kits, artillery shells, aircraft parts, winter uniforms, radio equipment. Supplies packed and stacked with an efficiency that seems almost alien. The Soviets stand motionless as truck after truck rolls by. The engines roar like a promise. You will not run out again. A driver wearing an American-made leather jacket looks out from his cab and shouts to the Soviet troops through the freezing wind, "Keep pushing! More coming behind us!" A Red Army private looks at Denisov, stunned. They sent all this for us? Denisov nods, but even he cannot fully believe what he's seeing. Hours later, as dawn breaks, the convoy has still not ended. Hundreds of kilometers away, in Moscow, Marshal Georgy Zhukov stands inside the Stavka war room. Maps cover every wall. Red arrows slice across Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic states. Plans for liberation, for counteroffensives that require only one thing: mobility. Zhukov reads the latest logistics report. For the first time since the war began, the Red Army's truck availability has spiked by tens of thousands in a single month. Studebakers, Dodge 3/4 tons, GMCs, Jeeps by the tens of thousands. A staff major clears his throat. "Comrade Marshal, American deliveries are exceeding projections. The Persians are unloading ships around the clock. More convoys are en route. These numbers," he hesitates, almost embarrassed, "they seem exaggerated." Zhukov studies the papers. 400,000 trucks, already on the way, or soon to be. He sets the report down. "These are not exaggerations," he says quietly. "This is how America fights a war." He steps to the window, snow falling outside, faintly illuminated by Moscow's dim wartime lamps. "Tell the front commanders," Zhukov orders, "our offensives will not stop for winter. With these machines, we advance no matter what."
Back at the front, Colonel Denisov grips the side of a Studebaker as his battalion loads aboard. Soldiers climb in with awkward smiles, touching the metal frames as if confirming they're real. For men who marched hundreds of miles with blistered feet, these trucks feel unreal, like some miracle carved from steel. "Colonel, what does this mean?" the lieutenant says. Denisov looks across the endless valley. The trucks idle patiently, ready to move hundreds of kilometers in a single day. "It means the Germans won't be able to run fast enough," Denisov replies. The convoy growls to life. Engines roar. Troops cheer. Snow kicks into the air as more and more Studebakers roll into line. A mechanized Red Army, for the first time, comes into being before their eyes. And high above them, the morning sun finally breaks through the clouds, illuminating a truth none of them expected. The West's industrial power was not just large, it was indescribable. And now, it belonged to the Red Army. "Forward!" Denisov shouts. The entire column lurches into motion, a steel river flowing toward the German lines. What began as disbelief has now become momentum. Momentum that will carry them all the way to Berlin. But the Soviets have not yet seen everything America is about to send. And the final shipments will change the war even more than the trucks.